snow tomorrow. I thought I told you.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Now joining us, Congressman Jim McDermott of the great state of Washington. Congressman, welcome to the Young Turks.
How are you?
I'm excellent. Great to have you here. Congressman, as you know, the president has reached a tax cut deal with the Republicans. You're going to get 13 months extra of unemployment insurance, but the rich will get their tax cuts continued for the top income bracket, plus a cut in estate tax. First, for sake of clarity, I know where you stand on it, but I want to let people at home know, are you going to vote yes or no on that when it comes to the House?
I'm going to vote no.
And why is that, Congressman?
Well, for a lot of reasons. I think the first reason is that the accumulation of wealth at the top of the income scale has been extraordinary over the last 30 years. We've gone from $8 trillion in wealth to $40 trillion in wealth in the top 5% since 1980. And there comes a time when we just have to stop that. The middle class is being clobbered every single year. They don't get tax, they don't get pay increases, they don't get, their health care benefits are going up every year, and it's simply got to stop. And for the Democrats to be saying, let's shovel another $64 billion to the people on the top simply does not make sense to me. And I refuse to go along with it. Other people can if they wish, but my view is that that is not good public policy, and I think that it's time for us to call a halt to it. The second part is that it's unfair. If you're going to give the trust fund babies 2 years of security in their tax cuts, but you'll only give the unemployed 1 year. Ben Bernanke, the head of the Federal Reserve, says we're going to have unemployment like this for the next 5 years. So at least give the unemployed the same thing you give the trust fund babies. Neither one of them have a job. And my view is that kind of unfairness is got to stop, and we have to begin to redress the social injustices that go on in this society.
All right, Congressman McDermott, before we get into the policy angle, let me ask you real quick what you think is going to happen in the House. Because, of course, the Senate just passed this yesterday with only 15 senators voting no, and 5 of them being Republicans. When it goes to the House, do you think there's any chance that your side will prevail?
My view is that the situation will be this. I think a number of Democrats will vote no. I don't know how many will vote no, but I think that it's important that we make an attempt to stop this. It's got a steamroller quality to it. The rich have mobilized the media and everybody else, and I expect that we'll have a real tough time stopping them. But I don't think that means that's an excuse for not trying.
Well, now, of course, the president says that he couldn't have gotten a better deal, and that in order to get the unemployment insurance extension, in order to get the middle-class tax cuts, he had to give the tax cuts to the rich. Do you simply believe that his calculus is wrong?
Yes. I think that there is no question that this Congress would not have ended with the president being unable to the Republicans would have come back the next day and put it in. And I think that
Why? Why do you think that?
Why do I think that?
Yeah, because the president and his advisors and the Washington media are positive they couldn't have gotten a better deal, that the Republicans would have held out, etc. Why do you think that the Republicans would have given it?
Well, first of all, he could have gotten a better deal if he talked to us a little bit before he went out and gave away the store. This whole thing was done as though the House of Representatives didn't exist. And we would have given him the backing to make it possible for him to have a stronger hand, but he simply did not use the House. He went out and made the deal himself, and what he's got now is what he's got. He's going to have to live with it. He will never stop this in 2 years. He says, oh, well, we're going to get to 2 years from now, and I'm going to make a stand right at election time. That's nonsense. We know that. And We know that they're going to be fighting 1 year from now. It'll be the Republicans in charge of the House. It'll be the Republicans in charge of the Senate. And unemployment benefits will have run out again, and the president will have given up his opportunity to guarantee, during his time at least, that the unemployed in this country have benefits. I mean, he simply, I don't know, he took Senator McConnell as though McConnell won the war. And I guess if you think that, you give up. But I don't give up.
So, Representative McDermott, what do you think it is? I mean, do you think that the president's just a bad poker player, or do you think, well, his heart wasn't in this fight, he didn't really want to win the fight, and, I mean, which one is it? Or maybe it's something else?
I think others will have to decide that as we go along. I personally think that they started from a position that the president said, I'm not going to extend benefits to continue giving people at the top these extraordinary advantages, and then he turns around and does it. I mean, I I have a hard time understanding what he's thinking, frankly, because I don't understand what it's up. I really don't.
Well, so that again, at least it's two possible conclusions, I think. One is that the president doesn't understand the politics of it. I mean, so let's talk about that for a second, because, look, some congressmen are saying, hey, you know, the way that this normally works, and some critics, et cetera, of the administration are saying that you would go out and you would pressure people like Scott Brown in Massachusetts, Olympia Snowe in Maine, et cetera, and say, hey, look, the polls are on my side. I'm going to campaign on this issue in your state. You will lose your seat the next time around if you're this much against the American people on this issue. Do you think the president just doesn't understand that concept, or just he didn't want to bother going up to Maine and Massachusetts? I don't know. I'm at a loss. I'm trying to figure it out with you.
Well, I think a lot of us are in the caucus. We're not quite sure why this is happening. It doesn't make political sense what he did, and it doesn't make economic sense. I mean, when you have Mitt Romney coming down in the USA Today saying this is a bad deal, you have to ask yourself, what is this good deal that the president got? I mean, I find myself wondering when I'm on the same side as Mitt Romney as to what's going on in the process.
Well, of course, Mitt Romney says, no, we should give more tax cuts to the rich. This isn't enough. And that the unemployment insurance extension causes problems with the deficit. He says it's a bedrock principle of the Republicans that they always pay for things like the unemployment insurance. In the next paragraph, he says we should not pay for the tax cuts for the rich. So I don't know what kind of a bedrock principle it is, but that's his claim. And it is interesting because the Mint voted against this, so did Bernie Sanders and Feingold, et cetera. It's a strange bedfellows. But you know, the other possibility, Congressman, is that the president isn't really that progressive. Have you guys thought about that in the caucus?
Well, we didn't talk about progressive or conservative or anything else. What we're trying to figure out is how we are fair to the workers in this country. And if you believe, and I don't believe this, I don't believe that the Republicans could have gone home to Christmas and said, we're not going to take care of the unemployed. We're going to leave them hanging out there. They dragged them around for 51 days last August so they could extract some things out of the Senate. And they're dragging them through this from the 1st of December on. They've been dragging them toward the first of the year. They put 2 million people out there without any way to pay their rent or their mortgage or buy food for their children or pay for their electric light bill. And they are willing to do that to people in order to get one thing. Because we passed from the House the unemployment benefit extension. We passed the extension of the middle-class tax cuts. And the Republicans said, no, we will not do it unless you give more money to the rich. And they have simply stood on that position. And I don't think that's a winning position in this country at this point. I think that if the president had been hard and stood firm, I think you would have seen a change. But that's that was yesterday's news now.
Well, Congressman, let's go to tomorrow's news, because my guess is that over the next 2 years, the president will cut many, many deals with the Republicans. And every time they'll come to you and they'll say, you better accept these deals with the Republicans, otherwise you're the bad guys. As Larry Summers said, you're going to cause a double-dip recession. And
well, remember, wait a minute, let's talk about Larry Summers. This is a guy who brought us the catastrophe we have on Wall Street right now. For him to be going around telling us about we're going to have a double-dip a double-dip collapse, it's laughable. I don't know why anybody pays any attention to him whatsoever.
But he is, or was, the president's top economic advisor. So
well, there's a lot of us that think he should have gotten a new team. If he'd have brought in Joe Stiglitz or Paul Krugman or some others, he'd be in much better shape today than he is now, having listened to Larry Summers take us down the road a further piece.
But Congressman McDermott, the fact is, he isn't going to bring in Stiglitz. Apparently, he's just not that guy. He's going to bring in people like Tim Geithner and Larry Summers, and he's going to cut deals with the Republicans. That's what he's done his whole life. That's what he's done the first 2 years. That's what he's going to definitely do the next 2 years, if all of this, if the past is indication. So how do you deal with that reality? How do you deal with the reality of a Democratic president who doesn't really appear to be progressive and works with the Republicans and blames you for it? How do you deal with that as a progressive in the House?
Well, we're going to see. I don't have the answer to that. It's you're asking a really good question, but it's one to which I don't have a good answer. I'll tell you that. I think that we are in serious trouble because the president simply does not seem willing to go after some things that I think he's going to have to if he's going to get anything done for the people of this country. He simply has, in my view, given up the willingness to fight for economic justice in this country, and to take 1 year of unemployment benefits and say that that's worth giving. I mean, that's $56 billion, and he says, "Well, I'll give $65 billion to the wealthiest people in this country, who already are making more than $250,000, and I'm going to give them more money than I'm willing to give to the unemployed." It's very hard for me to make any sense whatsoever out of that.
So, Congressman McDermott, let me ask you one final question then. I mean, what seems to have worked for the Republicans, and this is giving the president the benefit of the doubt that he's just a bad negotiator. And so he thinks if they say they're immovable, then they must be immovable. He just accepts that as the reality of Washington and then does whatever deal he does according to that, right? Doesn't that give you guys, progressives in the House, an incentive to be equally immovable? To say, you know what, next time you come and ask me for a vote, my answer is hell no, and I'm going to gather up as many votes as I possibly can in the House, and they're all going to be, Mr. President, hell no.
Well, it's I don't know what the next game is. I think it's going to take us a while to get over what's happened here, and I really think it is very hard to think how you're going to deal with the next round here, because the president has now shown that he can be bullied, and I don't want my president to be bullied. I don't think these guys deserve it, and I think we would be all much better if we were able to say, that we're not gonna back down, and that there's no excuse for us giving up like this. I mean, that's the hard part for me, is that it's giving up without a fight. Because I just think you don't give up just because the other guy says, well, I don't like what you're doing, so I'm going to do it my way, and that's it. My view is that there might be some advantage to, at some point, saying, I'm going to stop. I'm standing here. I'm not moving. And apparently the president didn't see it that way, and I lied.
I'm going to ask one more question then, because based on what you were saying there, but look, he moves against you guys all the time. I mean, you know, when you say, hey, no, I don't want to do tax cuts for the wealthy, he comes down on you like a ton of bricks. He says, you know, the people on the left are sanctimonious. Remember when Senator Dorgan introduced the bill to import drugs into the country from Canada, et cetera? He moved 10 or 20 votes in the Senate. He knows how to fight liberals. So I'm not sure it's that he doesn't know how to fight. I think the real question is, why is he only choosing to fight liberals and not Republicans?
I don't have a good answer for that. I think that we want him to win. We want him to succeed. More than anything, we want him to succeed. And that's what's the hardest part for all of us is that we think he's just made bad choices here. I mean, that's all I can say is it seems like the choice of where to fight has not been clearly thought through, and when you start giving in on the kinds of things he's giving in on, you really worry that there is no way back from that. I mean, that's why I said this was Gettysburg, because it really is. That was the turning point in the war, and it really is a question of how you continue to rally your troops if you keep giving in on things that people really care about. That's the troublesome thing for me, at least. I find it the hardest part to deal with is the fact that there doesn't seem to be a point at which the president will say, nope, we're not going there. And I really worry about that, because this is going to be a very, very, very tough session in the Congress. I don't see how he's going to get anything done positive unless he really marshals his forces to fight together.
All right, Congressman Jim McDermott, very honest interview. We really appreciate you coming on and discussing this with us.